The J-League is Japan's premier football division, but what if we moved all 18 clubs to the English Premier League? There's a few things I want to find out. Can Japanese clubs dominate England, or will lower league English clubs take over? Will any Japanese sides win the Champions League? And can English clubs we sent the other way make the J-League the most popular league in Asia? Well, in Season 1, it doesn't start well for Japan, as Luton win their first Premier League title ahead of Yokohama Marinos. This is not what I had expected. Luton and Sheffield United are still in the Premier League because there's only 18 teams in the J-League to move over. They both have the lowest reputation in the Premier League, which is why I chose them to be left behind, but it turns out they're still pretty good. Over in Japan, where the league is played from February to December, Liverpool top the table midway through the season. We'll come back every now and again to assess the J-League later on in the video. Instead, we'll go to Season 2 and look at the Champions League, where Yokohama Marinos, Luton and Sheffield United qualify from the league phase. Sadly, Kawasaki Frontale finished rock bottom. Sheffield United were the only one of the 3 teams to progress past the knockout playoff round, but ended up losing to AC Milan in the round of 16. But it might be the last time we see a Japanese club in the Champions League for a while, because the Premier League top 4 are all English, and Yokohama Marinos have been relegated after finishing second last season. Looking at their transfer history, they didn't sell anyone, but they brought in £15 million worth of players, so my only assumption is the new players have completely ruined whatever good tactics they had going on. It's also not good for the Japanese teams who got relegated last season, as they finished 22nd, 23rd and 24th in the championship for a double relegation. Nagata's top player ranked by current ability is only 115 out of 200, which is only really good enough for League 1, and the bulk of their players are League 2 and National League level, so their relegation kind of does make sense. In Season 3, Vissel Kobe and Hiroshima both got through the Europa League phase, and then both got through the first knockout round. Hiroshima fell in the round of 16, but Kobe progressed, to then narrowly lose out to eventual winners Lazio 2-1 on aggregate. Now, they've brought in 41 players since we moved them to the Premier League, so their team is now totally different. But I do feel like they are at a level where they could win the Europa League, although they won't have a chance next season as they drop to 13th in the Premier League, missing out on any European qualification. Only one of last season's relegated teams from the Premier League got relegated again from the Championship, and the teams who got relegated to League 1 last season have also found their level, finishing in the top half of League 1. Tosu are the worst ranked team so far out of all the Japanese teams we've moved over, so imagine if they came back to win everything later on. In Season 4, Kawasaki Frontale are the only Japanese team in Europe, and they just came 7th in the Conference League, meaning they go straight through to the round of 16. Here they progressed by beating FC Twente, and then they got past Istanbul Başakşehir in the quarterfinals, before then reaching the final by beating Swiss side Linzer Athletic Sport Club. All that stands between them and European glory is Union Berlin, but Kawasaki come out on top to be the first Japanese side to lift a European trophy. So they will be in the Europa League next season, and it's the only good European performance from anyone in the Premier League, as the league drops down UEFA's coefficient rankings given the poor performances from all the clubs, and there's now only 5 direct spots into European competitions via league qualification. Poor Gamba Osaka and Kashima, they will have to settle for the Europa League instead after finishing in the top 4. All 3 clubs finish in the top 8 of next season's Europa League to progress to the round of 16, where all 3 of them win again. Kashima and Gamba Osaka fall in the quarterfinals, but Kawasaki beat RZ, and then reach another final by beating Ghent. Surely Bayer Leverkusen are going to be way too strong. Well, they had more shots on target, but Kawasaki scored more goals to win a second European trophy and qualify for the Champions League, which is important given the Premier League now only has 3 direct qualification spots. Sheffield United qualified via the FA Cup, and relegated Preston reached the Conference League after winning the League Cup. So can Kawasaki save England? They finished 17th place in the Champions League to progress, but sadly lose to Benfica in the knockout playoff round, which brings an end to their insane European run. However, Hiroshima have finished second in the Europa League phase. They then beat Cluj in the round of 16, Fiorentina in the quarterfinals, and then Celtic in the semis to set up a second Japan versus Bayer Leverkusen final. But this time, it's the Germans who come out on top. So whilst Japanese clubs can win in Europe, they still can't win in the Premier League. And I think winning that is the next step they need to take before a Japanese club can lift the Champions League. We have to wait until the end of season 11 to see a Japanese winner, as Vissel Kobe lift the title by 2 points. Also, all of the European spots have now returned, so have we seen a Japanese team win the Champions League? Well, not yet. But the Champions League has been won by teams like Porto and Southampton, who are the real surprise packages. Kobe won the Europa League in 2030, and Kashima lost this season's Conference League final. And over in Japan, where Spurs are currently top of the table, they have been able to overtake the Saudi Pro League as the most reputable league in all of Asia. So we can put a big tick next to question number 3. However, that might have to be taken away if the Saudi Pro League gets back ahead of the J-League. Hopefully, from now on, we are going to see plenty of Japanese winners of the Premier League, so we can put a tick next to them dominating the English Football League system soon. Or not. Because 30 seasons into the future, we've only seen 2 Japanese winners of the Premier League. And it turns out Southampton are actually pretty good. Well, if you get rid of the 20 existing Premier League teams, then yeah, okay, they might be alright. They've just won their 6th Champions League title and beaten Luton to the Premier League Championship by 11 points. Cerezo Osaka have been the best team from Japan for the past decade, and they themselves have gone on to win 2 Europa League titles, as well as FC Tokyo, who were the first team to win it since we saw Kobe do it back in 2030. Vissel Kobe became the 2nd Japanese team to win the Conference League in 2037. And since then, a whole host of Japanese teams have won and lost the final. But even though Luton have now won the Champions League twice, we still don't have a Japanese winner of Europe's top competition. As for the J-League, the former Premier League clubs have actually produced an interesting dynamic, with Wolves, West Ham and Villa being the teams to beat. However, they have slipped behind the Saudi Pro League in terms of competition reputation. And that seems to be because the Saudi clubs still win the majority of the AFC Champions League titles. So this time we have to put a big X next to all of our questions. I'm also trying to work out if there's a reason that the Japanese clubs just aren't winning the Premier League. Well, the best player in the world is currently playing at Cerezo Osaka, and the bulk of their starting lineup does look good enough. So I assume the issue is because they don't have enough quality in their squad depth. If we compare them to Southampton, well, they have a lot more players with over 150 out of 200 current ability. Reputation change is slow in Football Manager, so they might just need more time to increase their reputation to get even better players. But it's currently 8,961 out of 10,000, and so that should be good enough to have a title-winning squad. Also a big fan of Josko Gvardiol being the manager of Cerezo Osaka. His manager attributes are actually incredible, although maybe Josko and the team are good enough and Southampton are just insanely good, because in 2056, Cerezo Osaka came 3rd in the Champions League phase. They then beat Victoria Pleasant in the round of 16, before thrashing Barcelona in the quarter-finals, where fellow Japanese side Kawasaki Frontale lost to Real Madrid. But a win against Ajax means that Cerezo Osaka are going to the Champions League final, where they'll take on Atletico Madrid for the biggest prize in Europe, and win the final on a penalty shootout. They are now the first Japanese side to win the Champions League, and we can tick off that question. By the end of the 2050s, Cerezo Osaka did win the Premier League title, and dominated the early 2060s, until Leeds came along and sucked out all the joy from the Premier League title race. We just can't seem to get a Japanese team to stay on top. And even though Cerezo Osaka won a 2nd Champions League, they've been on the decline ever since. Also, the J-League is still behind the Saudi Pro League in competition reputation, so things aren't looking particularly good for us right now. So to try and put some ticks next to these questions, I've left the game simulating until 2169 or season 146, where Derby are about to win the title ahead of Southampton. Now, there have been periods of domination. There wasn't a Japanese winner for over 45 years until Cerezo Osaka won it again in 2110 before Hull City took over. After that, Tosu, who were in League One in Season 3 of this video, had a run of 6 in a row, before Oxford United dynasty took over and was briefly interrupted twice by Cerezo Osaka. Since then, it's been mostly Derby winning the title, but Osaka and Tosu have won the odd title. So I think we have to conclude that Japanese clubs couldn't dominate the Premier League. The former Premier League clubs couldn't get back on top of the Saudi Pro League, and by this stage, a lot of those teams have been relegated into the lower leagues of Japanese football. However, not a single Japanese club has gone on to win the J-League. Arsenal are the most successful team, winning 39 titles, and aside from Manchester United in 2107, they're the only team based in Japan to have won the AFC Champions League in the 22nd century. The fight is now between Saudi Arabian clubs and Johor from Malaysia. So it's actually been a disaster for our former Premier League clubs. But what about the Champions League? Well, Cerezo Osaka have won 7 trophies, and Tosu have won 4, meaning that Japanese clubs have won 7.5% of all Champions Leagues. That sounds very impressive, until you realise that 9.5% of all Champions Leagues won in this video have been done by Oxford United and Derby County. Still, the question was, can a Japanese club win the Champions League? And the answer was resoundingly yes. Last week I created 2 perfect wonderkid goalkeepers and put them at 2 wildly different clubs, one at Bayern Munich and one in the middle of Africa. Which one do you think would go on to have the better career? You can see the results of that one in the video on screen right now.